Hey guys, how are you? Anyways, wanted to go into another brew video. I decided I want to try my hand at making a honey ale. I've never done one before, so this will be a first time for me, and I'm going to film it. And hopefully it turns out good, because I've only made maybe 2 batches of beer that I just could not stomach and ended up dumping them. But anyways, I'm hoping I don't do that anymore. So anyways, this is a honey ale. Very basic beer, not a whole lot of complication to it. Anyone can make this beer. I'm doing an all grain version of it today. So basically the grain bill is as follows. We need 7 pounds of domestic 2-row malt. We need 2.5 pounds of Vienna malt, 1 pound of honey malt, and half a pound of domestic carapils. For the hop schedule, 5 minutes into the boil, we're going to add 1 ounce of German tradition hops, and that's just for bittering. It's not going to do anything else but that. And then at the end, when I turn the flame off, we're going to do 2 pounds of honey. So I'm going to go ahead and heat up the mash water, and that's 1.5 quarts of water per pound of grain, and that's going to come out to about 4.13 pounds or 4.13 gallons of water. So stay tuned, and I'm going to go ahead and get this going, and I'm going to try to keep this video short and sweet. Okay, so we've already heated up our mash water. I got it up to 168 degrees. My grain's sitting about 72 degrees, so I want this to be about 155, between 154 and 156 degrees, more or less. That way I make sure the sugar, starch to sugars conversion occurs. So I'm going to go ahead and get the water in here, mash in the grain, and then we'll cap it, and we'll wait an hour. Very hot water, so always use gloves and exercise caution. Now let's mix in the grains. And you want to mash them in with a paddle. That way you don't get any dough balls anywhere. You want to make sure every bit of the grain is covered by water. Get as much of that sugar out of that grain as you can. I like to use a big mash paddle because it just, you can see it just mixes up with no problem. These little flimsy plastic paddles that people use, they tend to get real flimsy and hard to stir with. So I've been doing this for a little while now, so figured might as well spend, 30 bucks or so and get a good paddle. I just want to mix this in good. So we have good contact. And this will get less soupy as the grains absorb the water. Let's just set the paddle on the edge here. See if we can take a temp. Looks like I'm going to be right around 157. Yeah, right about 157. So that's not too terrible. I might add a little cool water to this just to bring it down to about 155. But I'm going to cap it, and then we will come back and start the Vorlauf process. Okay, it's been an hour. I'm getting ready to sparge this thing. Basically, I'm going to run what I've gotten here out into a cup like so, like I did in my other video. I'm going to keep running it until I get clear wort, or as clear as I can, and then I'm going to start collecting it in my boil pot down here. And after I get clear runnings coming out of here, I will start sparging it with water from my hot liquor tank. And the hot liquor tank will, it's just basically a fancy way of saying hot water tank, whatever. But the water in here is about 170 degrees. I want to start running it through the top of here and sprinkling on top of the grain bed, and as it settles through the grain bed, it's going to wash out whatever sugars are left in the grain. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to go ahead and start the sparging process here. Take the lid off the mash tun. Just set it aside, whatever. We can go ahead and, well, we don't want to put this on yet, I'm sorry. We want to put our colander on top, and we're going to start running this out. And hopefully this is sugary, because if it's not sugary, this process did not go right or well. It's supposed to be sugary. So here we go. Get the air bubbles out. Starting to get a nice flow going. Nice color. I want to slow the flow just a little bit. You want that, the idea is to get that bed to kind of settle, and it starts to act like a filter after it settles. Put a little on your finger and taste it. Oh yeah, super sugary. It worked well. Just want it to flow. I collect about almost 2 quarts, and then I'll dump it back in on top. Like I said, we want this grain bed to kind of settle. Stop the draining here. You can see nice golden color to it. That's what we want. Looks like it's going to be good. You can see these little bits and pieces in here. We want to try to avoid having these bits and pieces in our wort if we can help it, because it's what it'll do is it'll contribute to a little bit of an off flavor in your beer, and you don't want that. So we'll go ahead and pour this on top through the colander. And the only reason why we're pouring it through a colander is because we're trying to give it that sprinkler effect. We don't want to just pour this right on top of the grain bed, because what you'll do is you'll disturb your grain bed. And then when you disturb your grain bed, you pretty much, all the settling that you had worked so hard to do, it gets all disturbed, and then you got to go back through this process of getting it settled again. And sometimes you end up with what's called a stuck sparge. When you get a stuck sparge, it's a lot of work getting that thing unstuck, and then you end up not being able to drain all your wort out of the grains. So that's what we're working on right now, is just filtering. And but yeah, you can just see it going. Okay, as you can see, I'm collecting the wort here in the pot, and it's going out pretty clear overall. I mean, there's still a few bits and pieces, but not like it would have been if I not did the Vorloff process for it. So what I'm going to do now is start my sparge arm, which is connected to my hot liquor tank. We're going to go ahead and start running this thing. And we want to keep about a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch of water above the grain bed. So, and that just kind of keeps it from settling too much. We want to give this water time to run through. And at the end, of course, it'll start to set, the bed will start to settle out and the drainage will slow. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to run this until we collect about 6 gallons in this pot. And I'll probably top it up with a little bit of cold water to 7 gallons, because I know I'm going to probably have about 1.5 gallon boil off over the hour. So that's what we're doing. Just margin it up. Liquid heaven. Okay, as you can see, I'm getting this heated up. Once we get into a rolling boil, I'll let that run for about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to throw my 1 ounce of German tradition hops in here. And in the meantime, I can go ahead and get my mash tun cleaned out and get a bunch of other stuff cleaned up and put away, save me time on the cleanup process later. So right now we're just waiting for this to get to a boil. As soon as it's boiling, we'll let it go for 5 minutes, and we'll be back when we add the hops. Hello, welcome back. We've got a real nice rolling boil going. It's been going for about 5 minutes. I've got my 1 ounce of traditional German hops here in a spice ball, just so I don't have too much hop debris in my pot later. Go ahead and add the hops. And we'll let these boil through for the remainder of the session here. It'll be 55 minutes of boil time on these hops. And then we will add the honey once we turn the flame off. So there you have it. Just letting it cook away. Smells pretty good too. Most people may not agree with me on the way brewing beer smells, but some beers just smell amazingly delicious. So there you have it. I'll be back shortly when we start cooling this down, add the honey, and putting it in the fermenter. Alright guys, so I've pretty much finished the boil here. I've killed the flame. I've already had my wort chiller in here for about 15 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and add the honey. Just stir it and stir it and stir it. Get that honey mixed up real good. Get a whirlpool effect going. You want to mix that honey up real good. Get it dissolved. And don't be afraid to kind of scrape it out of the cup or bag or whatever you get your honey in. I'm just going to stir this and stir this and stir this. Make sure that honey is mixed in real well. Just another hot day in Houston. As you can tell, you can't see me sweating over here. And the pot's boiling hot wort. So, got the honey mixed in pretty well. You can see a lot of the proteins kind of coming up here. I'm going to go ahead and turn the wort chiller on, get this chilled down to yeast pitching temp, and then we will come back when I'm putting it in the fermenter. Okay, so we're at the point where I've cooled down the wort, and now I need to get it into my sanitized carboy. I've, like I said before in another video, I've sanitized the valve, I've sanitized this tubing that the wort's touching, and I've sanitized this funnel all the way into the carboy. You want to sanitize everything, because if you don't, you're just, that little bit of percentage of risk is still a risk. So we're going to go ahead and fill up the carboy with this cooled down wort. I've got a little screen in here too, and it helps with the aeration, and there'll be a lot of foam, which tells you that there's a lot of oxygen in it. And right now you do want a lot of oxygen in the wort because it helps the yeast grow and reproduce and consume the sugar. But later on, after it becomes beer, you really don't want to get any oxygen in there at all, because oxygen just ruins beer. So we're going to go ahead and fill this up. Once this is full, we'll pitch the yeast, and then we'll put it in a cool place that keeps it around 65 to 70 degrees. But you can see the color. It's a nice orange color, tannish to blondish orange. It's a honey color. It's always nice to know that it looks promising anyways. But anyways, I'll fill this up, and after that we will put it to cool while it ferments. Okay, well, since I didn't freeze any water bottles, and I was on a time constraint to get this cool as soon as possible, I'm still going to use my cool bag, but I need frozen bottles first, so now they're in the freezer freezing. So I might as well explain another method you can use to cool your fermenter, because a lot of people can't afford to right off the bat spend 70 bucks on a bag or 60 bucks or some other complex cooling method. This is called the wet t-shirt method, and basically you take a bucket or some kind of reservoir to set your fermenter in, and then you put ice in the bottom, or frozen ice bottles, which I don't have, so I just used all the ice in the house. But and then you put a t-shirt over it, and then you wet it, and you put more water in the bottom, and then you have a fan that blows on the t-shirt, and you get an evaporative cooling setup. It's a real cheap setup. You can get like $15 fan, an old t-shirt around the house. These buckets cost like $8, and just chip clip it onto your fermenter, and then every day just kind of change out your water bottles, monitor your water level in your frozen water bottles, I should say, and then monitor your water level and make sure it doesn't get dry, and just keep it for like this for a week, and you'll get this thing down to like 65 degrees, 64 degrees, because this used to be the way I did things, but since I upgraded to the cool brewing bag, I haven't really done it this way. A cool brewing bag has worked out very well for me. So anyways, since I forgot to freeze water bottles, you've learned another way to cool your fermenter, and this is called the swamp cool method. Works very well, very efficient, but you need space to have a fan, and you just need a place to put the fermenter and allocate or accommodate for the space of the vessel that the fermenter sits in. So anyways, we'll do a review on this beer once it's done, but it's going to take about 3 weeks from now before it's even ready. But anyways, feel free to comment below and let me know what you think. If you have any additional comments that might help others, then feel free to put those down there as well. Thanks. Cheers.